A confirmation about the audio, please, guys. If the audio is clear and available to you, kindly confirm the same. Thank you. So now we come to the final session for the day, where we shall be talking about the few of the other crop types and aspects such as irrigation, green revolution, also organic farming, before venturing into the portion of minerals and industries. And today we are also going to have a discussion of multiple choice questions as well. Having said that, tomorrow we are going to meet again. Tomorrow we are going to meet at 9 a.m. in the morning. We shall carry on the session for the module 23 and the mapping session. Ideally, we should be done by around 11:30 or 12. But if required, if need be, we will take a call thereafter. Okay. So having said that, now we come to the portion of plantation crops. Nepal earthquake, more than 100 people died. Yeah. So the Himalayan region is experiencing a lot of seismic activities as of now. So that is why you experienced this. So now, plantation crops. So plantation crops, when you talk about, we basically refer to very large areas under cultivation where you grow only one type of a crop. So various different crop types, they are grown under plantation methodologies or the plantation technique. For example, coffee, tea, coconut, rubber, cashew nuts, areca nut, all of them, they are grown under plantation, even oil palm for that matter, grown under plantation cultivation. Now here, of all the various different types, we shall be considering only the important ones out of them. So we are going to consider tea and coffee. Okay, tea and coffee. Now, for both of these, they basically grow at a certain altitude, not very high, but their rainfall requirement is very, very high. For example, for tea, rainfall requirement is rainfall requirement is roughly 150 to 200 centimeter. Okay, and so is the case with coffee as well. Rainfall required roughly around 150 to 200 centimeter. Okay, then here, no standing water. Okay, no standing water. Here also, no standing water. Now think about it. Very high amount of rainfall requirement, and water should not stagnate. So where will that happen? Obviously, where you have sloping land. That is why you will find tea and coffee, they would be growing in the hill slopes or the hilly areas. So grows in the slopes of the hills for example, and mountains also. For example, Nilgiris. So in the region of Karnataka, some portions, Kerala, in certain areas around Uti, for example, in Tamil Nadu also, right? There you will find the growth of tree, cultivation of tea. Then in some portions of Himachal, for example, there also tea cultivation is observed. So Himachal Pradesh, other than that, northern portion of West Bengal, around the region of Darjeeling, right? And northeastern states. Okay. Andhra Pradesh, you don't have that widespread tea cultivation. Only in some portions you have. You still don't have Andhra Pradesh being regarded as a major tea producing state out there. UPSC had asked that question also, if you recall that, Pranay, last year. Then here, temperature. Temperature condition which is required is basically 22 to 29 degrees Celsius. Okay. Now, in the case of coffee, you will find that the growth is temperature requirement is 23 to 28 degrees Celsius. 28 degrees Celsius. Okay. Here you will also observe that coffee, where it differs in terms of the conditions required for growth for tea is, first of all, slightly lower temperature, and secondly, it cannot grow under direct sunshine. So immediately the leaves will start wilting away. So that is why coffee always grows under shades. So whenever you go into the case of the coffee plantation, for example, in Karnataka, around the region around Kodagu district, etc., you'll find a lot of coffee plantation. But all of them you will find to be growing in shade. Right. There would be a large teak or another kind of a tree, and in the base of it, you'll find the coffee crops to be grown. So grows in shades. Of larger trees. Regions. Very good. Nilgiris in general. Karnataka is the largest producer. Is the largest producer. Okay. That is something that you will find as a feature for these plantation cultivation. Okay. Now, then we have certain types of crops which are put under the category of fiber crops. That is, from these crops, after you harvest these crops, fiber can be made out or fiber can be manufactured. So here when we have fiber crops, rubber is also a plantation crop. Coconut is also plantation crop. Coconut can sometimes be considered as a fiber crop as well. Then oil palm is also, cashew nut, erica nut. All these are coming under the category. So any kind of a crop which you grow in a very, very large area, monocropping is carried out with significant amount of labor intensive cultivation. That is what is a plantation crop. Okay. Now, fiber crops, from which you can end up making fiber, right? For example, for clothing apparels, for paper packaging industry, etc., you end up making fiber out of it. So, for example, cotton, for example, jute, for example, even coconut. So the ripened coconut, you would have seen that even the outer husk of it, that is also extracted and fiber is made out of it sometimes. But then hemp or the cannabis plant, from there also that fiber extraction takes place. So you have fiber extraction from many different types of crops. Out of that, cotton and jute are the primary ones. Now, cotton, it is a kharif crop. Okay, it is planted immediately after the monsoonal rainfall, and it is one of those which follows a rain-fed cultivation, where even if, let's suppose, irrigational supply is not there, even in that situation, you are able to cultivate that crop. Even then, you are able to grow that crop because the rainfall is basically retained, or the water is retained by the black soil, right? Majorly grown in black soil areas. It takes around 6 to 7 months of growing time period. And during that time period, the temperature should not go very low. Frost-free conditions should be prevalent. Temperature, ideally, even if it is slightly beyond 30 degrees Celsius, that is also okay for the growth of cotton, conducive for the growth of cotton. So here, temperature of 30, not 30 exactly, but around 23 to 30 degrees Celsius. Rains around 75 centimeter roughly. Okay. 6 to 7 months of growing period. Then after that, grows well in black soil regions and alluvial soil regions. For example, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, some parts of Karnataka, right? And then Andhra Pradesh, portions in Punjab. These areas also you will observe growth of cotton there. Okay, so example Maharashtra, Gujarat, then also MP, Andhra Pradesh, in very few areas of Telangana, then Punjab, etc. Now, jute, on the other hand, is a tropical crop. Now, for the growth of jute, you require very fresh alluvium. Ideally, if the region gets flooded every year, that is very ideal for the growth or the cultivation of jute, because thereby you will have newer and fresh alluvium getting deposited year after year. So this requires rainfall in excess of 150 centimeter. So that is why this crop basically is planted way earlier, and it benefits from the pre-monsoon showers also and monsoonal rainfall also. Even higher temperature window of around 35 degrees Celsius, etc., jute can tolerate. Generally grown across the river valleys and across the floodplains of the rivers, because that is where you will have the fulfillment of enough amount of water which is required for the cultivation and even processing of jute. It requires high amount of water intake, so that can be satisfied here. So temperature requirement of 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. Rainfall 150 centimeter. Benefits from pre-monsoon shower. Showers. Then after that, here grows in khadar soil conditions. Then after that, across floodplains of rivers regions, you have Assam, West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, parts of Andhra Pradesh, Even some areas of eastern Uttar Pradesh also, there also you will find jute cultivation to be happening. Okay, so that is the condition required. Now, once that jute is cultivated after getting harvested, then you have the processing, etc., which is carried out. And that is a long term process in which generally you basically, after retting everything, you come up with the jute fabric, which is used for gunny bags and other such packaging materials. Okay, so that is basically the utility of it. Now, when we talk about clothing apparels, one of the fiber which significantly constitutes one of the costly clothing apparels out there is silk. Now, silk is reared from silkworms. So you basic silk is rather extracted from silkworms. So you rear silkworms, you feed them enough amount of leaves, and when they eventually, as is the case with the development cycle of worms, what happens is that initially they exist in the caterpillar stage and in the worm stage, and then they start consuming a lot of food where their body significantly increases in size, and eventually they go into a long sleep where they wrap a cocoon like structure around them, and they go for a long sleep in which their body changes, metamorphoses into, develops structural differences such as wings, patterns, etc. Now, in that cocoon stage itself, the worms are basically taken out, and that cocoon is unwrapped and silk is extracted. So, that is the entire process for silk extraction. And the process of silk extraction, that is also, or the rearing of silkworms, that is also what is referred to as sericulture. So, when you come across the term sericulture is rearing of these silkworms for cultivation or extraction of silk out of it. Okay, now majority of the silkworms that you basically rear, majority of them, they consume mulberry leaves, and that is why the silk that is extracted from them is the mulberry silk, which is the most dominant one. Having said that, the silk industry is one of the large providers of employment in the rural areas and also in the unorganized sector as well. You have millions of people employed directly or indirectly in the silk industry. And also, this silk industry provides you with the facility to have decentralized production centers, even in tribal areas or forested regions such as Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha. In those areas also, you can have this mode of job or employment generation. In India, you have four major varieties of silk that are produced. You have mulberry, you have tassar, you have eri or inadi, and you have muga. So all the four major varieties of silk are produced in India. So here, when you talk about the varieties of silk, mulberry silk, this is the most dominant one. Here, the worms, they feed on the mulberry leaves, and that is when they secrete those silk threads to wrap a cocoon around themselves, and that cocoon is basically extracted in a way to give you an idea about, or the final formulation of the mulberry silk also. This is the most major variety. Major variety. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, parts of Kerala, these areas, they specialize in mulberry silk production. Then you have Muga silk. Muga silk, chiefly produced in the region of Assam, is also known by the name of royal silk, because historically this has been the silk which has been used in order to dress up the Ahomian royals of that region. So that is why it is also referred to as royal silk. Okay. It is chiefly grown in the northeastern region of Assam. Then you have Tassar silk. Tassar silk is the one which is also referred to by the name of wild silk, because here the silkworm basically feeds upon any leaf which is available, made available to them. They grow in size and eventually they produce that silk. So that is why Tassar silk is not of the best varieties or the qualities out there. Having said that, because of various different procedures and processes which have evolved in the textile industry, now we have the facility Or now we are able to produce very fine materials of Tassar silk as well. That is why Tassar saris, etc., that you will find, they are significantly priced at a very high price point. Then you have Eri or Inadi silk, which is also referred to as piece silk. Amongst the major varieties of silk that is produced, Eri silk is one of those for which killing of silkworm per se is not required. Silkworm here is not required to be killed. This is also used for apparel manufacturing, for clothing and certain materials. For that also Eri silk is used. Okay. British forcefully moved Indian farmers towards commercialization of cotton silk, and British replaced Italian and Spanish silk with the Indian silk. Yes, but see the aspect of silk being produced. If you take a global viewpoint, so silk produced in the region around Asia. See, ideally, Britishers, they wanted to get the Chinese silk. They could not. So in a way, they settled for something next, which was available to them. Same is the case with the tea as well. They wanted to capture the Chinese production, but they could not. So that is when they captured the Indian production. So the history of it is also much more interesting and much more varied than many of us know. So if ever you are interested in that, read about the history, something which you don't come across in the books. Okay. And now, nonetheless, we come to the portion of irrigation. What is irrigation? Irrigation is when you artificially provide water for cultivation processes. Because rainfall also provides water, rivers also provide water. But then, artificially, if you ensure that water is provided for the cultivation of crops, that is irrigation. Now, the type of irrigation or the type of methodology that you adopt to provide that water, it varies from one area to another. And depending upon the topography, depending upon the nature of the land, etc., it ends up varying. Historically, you had wells which were used for irrigation, where you would basically dip a bucket and pull it up with a kind of a rope or a pulley structure which was attached, and you would pull up the water from the well and use it for irrigation methods. Right? Historically, that would be utilized. But then, over a period of time, that has evolved. Canal system also would be in existence for a long period of time. In fact, in India, you will find the evidences of canals being constructed even in the time of the Tughlaqs, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. If you would have read history carefully, you would have basically realized that Firoz Shah Tughlaq built one of the significant canals in northern part of the country. So this is something which was always present. But nowadays, the methodology of irrigation is changing, because canal irrigation, even tube well irrigation for that matter, involves substantial wastage of water resource. So that is why nowadays you have that evolution, and evolution in the form of sprinkler and drip irrigation. So here, just a moment. Okay. So historically, you had different forms of irrigational methodologies which have been deployed, but nowadays you will find increased deployment of modern methods of irrigation and cultivation, such as sprinkler and drip irrigation. What are these? So when we talk about sprinkler irrigation, for example, sprinkler irrigation. Now, sprinklers you would have seen to be present in your gardens nearby, in the parks, gardens, or the stadiums. There you see the sprinkler systems. So, how do these sprinkler systems they operate? So basically, if suppose this is the ground surface, you will have a kind of a system here which is installed. A system which is installed, which is connected to the pipeline. Okay. And from this, water is supplied in the form of a spray of sorts. Water is sprayed around from here. So in a way, it mimics the event of a rainfall, right? During rainfall, how you have drops of water falling everywhere. So it mimics that condition itself. And that is the key quality of sprinkler irrigation. It significantly reduces the utility or usage of water. It brings about judicious usage of water. Then, when we talk about drip irrigation, for example, drip irrigation. Drip irrigation provides water availability directly at the roots where the plant is growing. Directly at the roots, you provide the availability of water. Okay. So, for example, let's suppose here you have the plants which are growing. Here you have plants which are growing. So, why to waste water in between them? Right. Because the water required is by the root system, isn't it? So, in the case of the drip irrigation, you'll find that again a pipeline is installed. Here you will find that a pipeline is actually installed, which passes across the whole farmland. And in that pipeline, perforations are made. And those perforations are made ideally around the region of the roots, where drop by drop, as per the requirement, water is consistently supplied to the roots. Water is supplied here and directly applied to the root. So that also brings about substantial amount of water conservation methodology. So more crop per drop. That is something which is always attainable in the case of drip irrigation. Now, because of drip irrigation, this also prevents, and even sprinkler and drip irrigation, both of them, they prevent salination of the soil becoming saline or usar. So they retain the soil moisture and fertility for the long run. This drip irrigation also provides the facility because the solution is applied directly to the roots of the plants. Many of the times, for example, certain types of phosphates which are soluble in water in terms of fertilizers, not all the phosphates will be soluble in water, but some of them can be. So those phosphates or those kind of fertilizers which are soluble in water, they are supplied through the same pipeline. So that fertilizer simultaneously can also be applied directly to the roots. This is a process where you apply the fertilizers during the process of irrigation. So that is what is also referred to as fertigation. So fertigation is fertilizer application during irrigation. Obviously, only those kinds of fertilizers basically which get dissolved completely in water, only those kind of fertilizers are to be used. Here, if you take a look at it, then amongst the various different types of irrigation, it is dependent upon the nature of the surface. For example, when you consider the peninsular part of the country, the plateau region, in many of the areas, the deposit of the volcanic material is kilometers high. With in some areas, obviously, water is present in between those layers, but digging becomes very costly, right? So tube well construction, canal construction in the plateaus become very difficult. But on the other hand, when you consider, let's suppose, the Gangetic plains or the plain areas where you have sedimentary soil, tube well construction is easy, cheaper, water is also available at a shallower depth, canal construction is also easy. For example, tanks. When you build tanks, tanks are what? You build a certain enclosure to store excess water, that during the dry season I will use that water for growing crops or for other purposes. Now, in those cases, what do you come across? You come across a situation where, let's suppose, if you are building the tank in a sedimentary soil region, all that water will seep off. All that water will basically leach to the lower regions. But if you are constructing the same tank, let's suppose on hard base rocks of Peninsular Plateau, then what will happen? These tanks will be sustained. These tanks will be easy to construct. So, depending upon the topographical conditions of a region, that is an important factor in determining the type of irrigational methodologies which are put to use. So, different sources of irrigation are used depending upon the topography, the soil, availability of surface or groundwater, amount of rainfall, etc. Wells and tube wells, canals, tanks, and other mechanisms, these are the major sources of irrigation that you have. Up till around the mid 60s, canal irrigation would be the most predominant methodology of irrigation in India, up till around the mid 60s. But then after that, owing to the deficiencies in canal construction of canals, the huge cost involved, the long time period which is consumed in construction of canals. For example, in Uttar Pradesh, recently, that is last year, you had one of the canal system which was inaugurated. The construction of it was something which began in late 70s and early 80s itself. So obviously you can think about it, that it took more than 30 years for the governments, various different governments in power, to construct that canal, right? Much more period of time as compared to what Shah Jahan took to construct Taj Mahal. So think about the predicament of it. The Taj Mahal took lesser time to be built as compared to a canal. So there are a lot of administrative inefficiencies, leakages, then corruption. Everything gets involved. Water also gets evaporated from the canal. So maintaining that supply also becomes difficult, due to which canal irrigation has taken a back seat. And now tube well irrigation is the one which is dominant, because now the farmers can dig a well, a tube well or a bore well in their own backyard wherever they want, and they can get the supply of water, the access of water whenever they want, isn't it? So that is why tube well irrigation and well irrigation overall, they constitute more than 46 to 47% of the source of irrigation across the country. uh, Gaurav, today modern farmers also practice hydro farming. Crops are grown on water in spite of soil nutrients are released in water. That is also what is referred to as hydroponics. You have, or aquaponics, yes. And Parshuram, tube wells is nothing but bore wells, yes. Pranay, Kakatiya dynasty developed tank irrigation in peninsular drainage not available. Yes, that is why Telangana government had also launched Mission Kakatiya for improving the irrigation by building, encouraging the farmers to build more tanks, right, and ensure greater construction or greater rate of construction of tanks. And the twist to it, which was added by the Telangana government, was it also encouraged the farmers that the tanks that you are constructing, why don't you rear fishes in them, prawns and shrimps in them, so that you can sell it off in the market and earn money out of it as well. So that is where you will be able to diversify your income significantly, augment the income source as well. Okay. So this is the proportion of area utilized or the region utilized for the cultivation or the methods for irrigation. Now here, if you take a look at each one of them separately, wells, in the case of the wells, you dig a hole, you reach the groundwater level, and you extract with the help of a rope and a pulley system. You extract the water mechanically. In the case of a tube well, you attach a pump or a motor set where you are able to extract the water, because by the electrical energy getting converted into mechanical energy. So that is what a tube well is. Tube well allows you to extract water from a greater depth also. Ideally, you will find a lot of tube well to be constructed in the region of northern part of the country, where the water is also available at a shallower depth. A lot of tube wells are to be found to be present in the northern part. Okay. When we talk about the canals, now in the case of the canal irrigation, one of the most prolific and the most high profile famous canal in India, that is the Indira Gandhi Canal. It even carries water to the dry regions of Jaisalmer and western Rajasthan. But canal irrigation, historically also, canal irrigation has been paid significant attention to across the world. But then canal irrigation has the drawbacks and the lacunae that I have told you about. For example, in many parts of eastern India, for example, Bihar. Now, Bihar is known for significant amount of administrative inefficiencies which have happened. Again, while we are discussing, I always attach a caveat. Today also I will attach a caveat. No disrespect meant to any individual for any state. We are preparing for all India services. You need to take an objective look at the various different states, the drawbacks, the lacunae of it. So don't get offended if we talk about Punjab or a Bihar or a Delhi or a Maharashtra. Don't take it on your sentiment that how come my state, which is the greatest state in the entirety of the Milky Way galaxy, let us assume whichever city or region or state you are living in, that is the best state out there in the entirety of the world. Now we will take an objective analysis. So, for example, in the state of Bihar, now in Bihar, many of the canals ideally had been completed on paper during the mid 90s and the late 80s. You had a lot of these canal projects worth hundreds of crores, which were shown to be completed on paper. An audit which was conducted around 10 or decade and a half back, it showed some stark results. It showed that none of those canals were implemented on ground. So the scope of significant amount of inefficiency and corruption, that is very, very high. And also in the canal, maintenance of water flow is very difficult because water is consistently being lost due to evaporation also. So maintenance of that water flow, ensuring the fresh water supply, that becomes difficult. That is why canal irrigation has taken a backseat in our country. In canal irrigation also, major areas under canal irrigation, you will find it to be present in the northern part of the country. In the southern part of the country, you will generally find it across the coastal plains, the eastern coastal plains in particular. Okay, so main areas of canal irrigation: Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Bihar. These are the major and the predominant areas under canal method of irrigation. Now, tanks. Tanks are what? Tanks are kind of enclosures. Enclosures that you construct for storage of water. That is what we regard as tanks. So in the case of tanks, it consists of water storage which has been developed by constructing a small bund of earth or stones to build around a stream where excess water is stored. Ideally, if you think about it, wherever you have sedimentary soil, tank irrigation will be difficult because a lot of water will seep down, right? And wherever you have plateau-like structure, peninsular plateau-like structure, there the tank construction is easier. So that is why in the regions of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana, where even the farmlands are very far away from each other, where giving them connection via canal doesn't make economic sense at all, in those areas, tank irrigation significantly comes to the rescue. So the water impounded by the bund is used for irrigation and for other purposes. It is popular in the Peninsular Plateau region, area where you have in the region of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Tamil Nadu as the leading states. Okay, that is the case of tank irrigation, majorly to be found in the peninsular part of the country. Okay, then we talk about agricultural productivity and efficiency. So, whenever you produce anything from the agricultural land, obviously, whenever anything is produced, how do you measure the efficiency? That whether in 1 acre or hectare of land, am I producing enough or am I producing less? So that is how, when we talk about efficiency, one of the parameters which is used, one of the metrics which is used is actually yield per hectare. Yield per hectare is a metric which is used to denote what is the efficiency. So in a region, if let's suppose the farming methodologies are very well suited, the soil conditions are accounted for, and ideally the crops are well nurtured and taken care of, so yield per hectare will be very high. If the soil, on the other hand, has become infertile, let's suppose problems due to irrigation, cultivation, also diseases, etc., then the yield per hectare will be low. In India, Regions such as Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, the so-called poster childs of Green Revolution, even in those areas, the yield per hectare has reduced. And when compared to regions such as Europe and China, yield per hectare in many parts of the country is very, very low. Now, productivity and efficiency is also monitored by how do you cultivate the land, in the sense that how many times during any particular year do you bring a land under cultivation? And that is denoted by a metric which we refer to as cropping intensity. So when we talk about cropping intensity, it gives you an idea about the number of times a piece of land is cultivated in a given year across various cropping seasons. Right? If you cultivate the same piece of land twice, right, you grow rice also, wheat also, more productivity. If you have grown only wheat, left the land like that throughout the year, less productivity. So, how do you measure it? So cropping intensity is measured in terms of percentage by gross cropped area divided by net sown area into 100. So gross cropped area by net sown. So here, this is the total area cultivated. This is area of the farmland. Okay. Total area cultivated throughout the year. So if suppose I have a farmland of 5 acres, let's suppose. Okay. Now, I grow rice in 5 acres. Okay. Then I have harvested rice. Then after that, in the same farmland, I also grow wheat in 5 acres. Okay. So here, overall, the total area cultivated or the gross cropped area is how much? 10 acres. Net sown area is 5 acres. So cropping intensity will be 10 by 5 into 100, 200%. That means greater productivity is ensured. Okay. Gaurav, wheat productivity in US is 40 quintal per acre, whereas in India it is 20 quintal per acre in Punjab, Haryana, 25 quintal per acre. Why? So in India, we have lesser crop productivity or lesser overall efficiency, because in many of the areas, when we talk about the production of it, the crops, the seeds that we use, that also varies. The soil in Punjab and Haryana, that has become infertile and saline because of continuous over irrigation and continuous cultivation of rice in that area and sugarcane in that area. The soil has become excessively saline. Excessive application of fertilizer has made the soil infertile also in that area, plus frequent occurrences of various different diseases for the crops, the pest infestation, etc. That also reduces our overall productivity. So all these measures, the quality of the seed, the condition of the soil, the condition of taking care of the crops and the produce, ensuring no diseases, all of that makes a major difference. Not only in the case of US, but compare it with Europe, compare it with China, right? It is very, very stark. So that is basically the cropping intensity. Now you have varying different types of cropping intensity across different parts of the country. So in regions such as Punjab, Haryana, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, cropping intensity is very high, 175. Then in areas of UP, Bihar, Assam, Kerala, It is around 150 to 175, means on an average 1.5 to 2 times the field is brought under cultivation. Then in areas of Chhattisgarh, parts of Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, the plateau areas, cropping intensity is 125 to 150, and it reduces further in the hilly regions. It reduces close to around 100. Okay, so that is how cropping intensity varies. Now, then we come across to what is agro and social forestry. What do we mean by this? So basically, for a long period of time, as we were talking about during the discussion of the forest as well, the intention of the government has been clear that we have to increase the forest cover of the country. At the same time, the intention has been clear that we have to increase the farm income. Even today, our motive is the same: increase the forest cover, increase the farm income. Now, one of the innovative methodologies which was adopted way back in the 70s and thereafter was the methodology of agro and social forestry. Where, when we say agroforestry is what? Agroforestry is when across the agricultural farmland, let's suppose you have an agricultural farmland. So, across the edges of it, you grow the trees. You create a forested landscape. Now, it will also provide you with a source of income. When the trees will mature, it will provide you with a source of income as well. This is what it will appear to look like, right? That source of income will provide substantial amount of livelihood in the rural areas. Women will get job opportunities in many of the areas, and also but because they will end up opening various self-help groups, etc. Then also you will find increase in the tree cover and help us achieve the target that we have set as per the national forest policy also, right? So increasing forest area and restoring ecological balance, meeting basic rural needs. For that, you don't need to go to the market. You have your own domestic production, better returns in terms of the farm income. Farm income increases, income increases, right? You have the produce from the various different trees. As well as they mature, you can sell them in the market. In case you have the fruits which are generated from the trees, that also can earn you significant amount. And the products from those trees, they are marketed in many of the cases across the states such as Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, etc., Maharashtra. You have cases where these farm products are then marketed by the self-help groups established by the women members or the women members of the households in the rural areas. So it provides employment, particularly to the women members of the rural areas, also bringing about gender equality and equity in many of these cases as well. So that is the objective of the agro and social forestry, to be managed in the agricultural farmland, to be managed by the people of that area itself. Okay, that is your agro and social forestry. Cropping intensity, Shweta, cropping intensity is a measure of how many times you have brought an agricultural field under cultivation, right? So for example, if a particular crop field, a particular area has been brought under cultivation twice, so cropping intensity becomes 200%, right? If so, how do you bring it under cultivation twice? So you grow rice, then again after harvesting of rice you grow wheat. So that is how you bring it under cultivation multiple times. In rural areas they grow mostly teak. Yes, Pranay, very good guy. So this is the experience, your normal experience. I want you to be able to depict it in the answer paper as well. Then coming to green revolution, what do we mean by green revolution? So when we talk about green revolution, it is a process which was initiated. The concept of it was initiated in the in the late 50s itself. And the concept of it was very simple. The basic purpose of it was what? Purpose was that in the underdeveloped portions of the world, in the developing nations, most of them were facing some or the other form of scarcity of food grains. So, how do you make food grains available to them continuously? So, that is where the concept of green revolution, which was initially postulated by Professor William Gadd and later on forwarded by Norman Borlaug. So, William Gadd, what he did was basically he brought about the aspect that if you bring about substantial growth of food grains in these areas, how do you do it? So, you do it by providing high yielding varieties of seeds, right? And ensure the proper mechanization, ensure irrigation, supply of electricity to run those irrigational supplies, right? Ensure that land reform, etc., is carried out. So that was implemented by Norman Borlaug in the region of Mexico, and that yielded significant amount of result. Now, M.S. Swaminathan, late M.S. Swaminathan, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who basically was one of the greatest agricultural proponents and scientists that India has produced. Now, he was the one who brought that concept of green revolution into India into the in the early 60s. And that is when, from the mid 60s onwards, it began being implemented. And once it was implemented, we have never taken a look back. We have basically significantly augmented or increased our crop productivity, in particular food grains. So, green revolution is basically, it refers to multiple growth in the crop production in the third world countries based upon the use of modern inputs, technology, high yielding variety of seeds. This refers to high yielding variety of seeds, okay, and mechanization as well as irrigational facilities. So, green revolution was termed by Professor William Gadd in 1958 in a seminar in Washington, which was titled as the food crisis in the third world countries. Later on, implemented by Norman Borlaug. So, here, Mexican food crisis was the stimuli as Professor Norman Borlaug developed the high yielding variety seeds by the genetic modification and cross fertilization of the good quality wheat. It was successful in Mexico, and wheat production doubled in a span of 7 years, and self sufficiency was achieved in the process. Okay, Mexico became self sufficient. Now, in India, it was brought forward by M.S. Swaminathan. M.S. Swaminathan was absolutely convinced that this is where it provides a solution or a panacea to India's issues of food scarcity. But obviously, the civil servants were not fully satisfied. And that is why they brought about the MS Swaminathan basically had to bring these high yielding variety of seeds, plant it in his own backyard, and show the results. And eventually, once everybody was convinced, only after that, it was implemented on a large global scale or across the country. Right? Now, this green revolution and the success of green revolution is basically based upon certain parameters: availability of high yielding varieties, increased productivity per crop, increased productivity per crop, then commercialization, growing crops for profit, crops for market, use of chemical fertilizers need to be ensured in order to augment the infertile soil, in order to boost that requirement of nutrients by the plants, irrigation facilities, mechanization by usage of tractors, thrashers, etc., rural electrification so that you can carry out that process of irrigation also, then land holding and consideration so that each of the individual farmers, they have some substantial amount of land which is available to them, rural credit, so that the farmers are able to procure these high yielding variety of seeds. They are able to procure that chemical fertilizer and use of pesticides, insecticides, and weedicides also in order to increase our overall productivity. So that is basically the basis on which the green revolution has proven to be a success. Okay, but the success of green revolution has largely been restricted into the regions of Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP only. Why is it the case? Why is it so that only these areas have benefited from the success of green revolution? Can we think about it? Gaurav, I think that is your question, that why green revolution mostly benefited Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP and not other states. So can you think about the reason why only these states benefited and not the eastern states or the southern states? Very good, Ravi. Irrigation, one of them. Availability of fertile soil. Fertile soil is available almost in the eastern part of the country as well, and some southern part of the country as well. Condition needed is a temperate one. Not necessarily. Ravi, you are again correct. Closeness to the center, that was again a point. Proximity to Delhi, that is again another point, where they could implement it and observe that implementation. State government efficient? No. This is where the misconception lies. The misconception which exists is the fact that green revolution became a success in these areas. Okay, it is a fair enough matter that yes, farmers obviously significantly also have a role to play in that, but it is not as if the farmers in other areas are lazy. It is not the case that the farmers in other areas like to sleep 16 hours a day, whereas the farmers in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, they like to work 16 hours a day. That is not the case. Farmers work equally hard. Then, if the state government was more efficient, then not always. So you have multiple cases. For example, Punjab, in that entire period of Green Revolution success, Punjab was a government state which experienced maximum amount of or a significant frequent imposition of the president's rule also during that point of time. Okay, agricultural communities like Jats. No, again, that is what the misconception is. That it is. See, we have brought about the success of Green Revolution, and others, the other farmers in other parts of the country like Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, UP. These people would have been lazy. That is why development would have not have happened. That is the gross misconception which comes from, in a way, misinformation which spreads very easily nowadays. Localized approach for availing food sufficiency first, lack of awareness, large land holdings, perennial rivers, availability of huge land area, trickle down approach, and policy and development differentiation of north and south were envisioned for industrial development. Understand, for green revolution, what is it that you required? Listen to this carefully. Green revolution requires availability of fertile soil, right? Availability of fertilizers, nutrients, availability of also infrastructure such as irrigation facilities, electrification, right? Now, after independence, because you had a lot of people who had come in from the region of the agriculturally prosperous areas of Punjab, which lied in the region of Pakistan, a lot of people had come from that area. The government had its priority to settle them down and give them some land. Now, that land initially was not as fertile as the portion of Punjab in Pakistan, but it was still very fertile. And significantly, the government at that point of time, due to proximity to New Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, and the region of Western UP, not the eastern portion of UP, not the southern portion of UP, western portion of UP, these were the areas which received electrification long time back. In many areas of West Bengal, Odisha, Bihar, even in portions of UP, Rural electrification has happened as late as in the turn of the century, that is after 2000s. These areas, many of the areas have witnessed electrical supply for the first time, right? Electrification was not provided. Canals, all the resources were pumped in to construct those canals. So during the 50s and the 60s, lot of canals were constructed in the region of areas of Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. Whereas that attention started or was given to the eastern part of the country as late as the 80s, right? And then obviously the process of bureaucracy took over. To add on to that, for this, for the success of green revolution, one of the key areas of success is the high yielding variety of seeds. High yielding variety of seeds and their availability, that also was ensured, not ensured, but it could be made available in the regions immediately in the vicinity of New Delhi, right? So if you take, let's suppose New Delhi as the center, draw a kind of a circle around it, the states covering or the regions covering, those were the regions which were beneficiaries of it. Even for the matter, for the supply of fertilizers, many areas in Odisha, West Bengal, Assam, Bihar, Eastern UP, usage of fertilizer has been a phenomena from the 90s onwards in many of the areas. In many of the areas, even after that, because the supply was not there, right? Whatever little amount of supply was there was ensured that it is supplied in Punjab, Haryana, and West UP. So a host of multiple factors, basically, they came together. Even land reforms. Land reforms was very successful in the region of Punjab and Haryana. Why? Because traditionally you had people who had to settle down there. People were allocated lands after independence in Punjab, especially, that okay, this belongs to you, this belongs to you. So accordingly you could go for a kind of a justifiable land division. In areas of eastern India, that land reform was also very delayed, so that also plays a significant role. And obviously then comes the government inefficiencies of the 80s and the 90s. But then, by that point of time, already a huge social and economic gap had already been created. So, unlike the unlike the popular conception which has been prevailing in the market for some time now, and this has been prevailing in the market ever since the agricultural reforms were introduced by the government, that the agricultural prosperity of these areas has been because of the back-breaking work of the farmer. Fair enough, farmers have been working very hard, and they have been working very hard throughout the country, right? But if you take a look at the farmlands of Punjab today, who is the worker working there? Very few people from Punjab you will find it working in their farmlands. Mostly you will find migrant workers coming from Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, Eastern UP. They are working in the farmlands. And the farmer themselves, they have made enough money for generations. So either if they are capable enough, they have migrated somewhere else, or their kids have migrated, right? So that regional disparity which has been brought over is one of the major limitations of green revolution. Is that understood? Is that entire reasoning understood? Gaurav? Excessive use of fertilizer had made it really difficult to export agricultural products to developed nations. Yes, absolutely yes. So limitations of green revolution. Green revolution has exhibited multiple various limitations. One of the limitations, and that is something which is now observable in the areas of Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, where the productivity has decreased. Those of you belonging from that region, if you ask your parents, your grandparents about the land, they will tell you that the land would be so fertile 30 years back, 40 years back. All of them will tell you the same story, that the land used to be so very fertile, you would throw a seed, a plant would grow up. But now, unless and until you dump in the fertilizers, the plants don't grow up. Why? Because green revolution also means you stick to the same food grains. Same food grains you grow again and again and again and again. That means the soil is drained out of fertility. Okay, so here, limitations. Excessive. reliance on high yielding variety seeds, ignoring the indigenous local variety. And it is the local variety which is much more capable to handle drought like condition, water stress, etc. The local variety, temperature shock, local variety is able to handle that. Local variety is capable to handle that. But high yielding variety of seeds is not able to handle that. So in the advent of climate change, which is oncoming in front of us, that is why you will find that there is increased cases of crop failures in many of these high yielding variety seeds as well. Then excessive focus on food grains means lack of crop diversification, right? Excessive use of fertilizers or chemicals brings about infertility, infertile soil. Okay. Then after that, growing crops not suited to that region, to that area. Basically, that has brought about depletion of groundwater level. Okay. Then getting stuck in rice wheat cycle, reduced farm income. In fact, if you observe it, it is true that today, and I say this with responsibility and I want you to hear it with maturity. Okay, don't reach at immediate conclusions that what is he saying? Is he insulting that region or what? Listen to this with a certain degree of maturity which is required for a civil services aspirant. As of now, the income level of farmers in Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, it is still high, significantly higher as compared to the income levels in many areas of southern part of the country, in many areas of eastern parts of the country. But then the agricultural growth has really stagnated in those areas. Punjab, for example, has recorded an agricultural growth rate which is lesser or almost half of that of India for past decade almost. The growth rate of agriculture. In states such as Bihar, obviously the base is very low, but the growth rate of agriculture is almost around double digits. In states such as Karnataka, in states such as very dry regions such as Telangana, that is also innovating in terms of agriculture. But in regions of Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh, because that set system showed them prosperity 30, 40 years back, even the next generation that is hesitant to make a change. You had this wonderful piece of research paper published in 1984 by Sardara Singh Joel, SS Joel, one of the great agricultural scientists who at that point of time would work in Punjab University. Think about it, 1984. At that point of time, he said that whatever peak efficiency that Punjab had to reach in terms of productivity, that has been reached. From here on, there will be a downfall or a decline in productivity because we are using the same methods over and over again, and we are making the soil infertile. So it is a high time that the farmers in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, they need to switch over to vegetables, horticulture, fruits, so that if they grow that, not only will the water be conserved, but income can grow up till 12 times. 1984, we are approaching 2024. What Sardara Singh Johal predicted at that point of time, he said that over a period of time, the farm income will go down, and these are agrarian states. For example, if you talk about Haryana, Haryana still has industries, right? A lot of industries are present in Haryana. Western UP also has the presence of industries because of proximity to Delhi. Punjab basically loses out in this. Punjab has witnessed a systematic decline in industries, right? There is a different kind of a discussion on that, why Punjab is experiencing a decline in industrial growth. Not only growth, but existing industries are also not opening up in that area. There's a matter of migration, etc. And people, generally, the talent pool in itself is declining. But then, Haryana and Western UP, they can basically make up for that loss of income from agriculture by the industries. Haryana has got Gurgaon. Gurgaon has got the service sector. So service sector will also give it money. UP has Western UP, in that region. You also have Noida, Ghaziabad, industrial area, service sector will give them money, will make up for that lost income. But Punjab is suffering. And SS Joel in 1984 had predicted that once the farm income will go down, social unrest will begin. And that social unrest may boil over, because obviously people won't be able to fulfill their own aspirations. And that is exactly what you see unfolding as a process in these areas. It is also predicted, as per the policy papers published during by the RBI, it has been predicted that in the next decade or so, the condition of farm income in India will show a very different picture. Punjab, which was amongst the highest grossing states across the country, is falling down the ladder because it is not innovating so much. It needs to take its learning from Green Revolution and bring forward the next era for agricultural growth, which shows the way to the rest of the country, as Punjab has always done. It has been a flag bearer. It needs to find a way, it needs to show the way for the rest of the country that this is how we do the cultivation, this is how we increase the agricultural productivity. So, what does it need to do? It needs to shift from that rice wheat system. It needs to grow millets. It needs to grow also significant and substantial amount of fruits and vegetables. And also the middlemen. The role of middlemen in these areas is very, very high, particularly so in Punjab. Those of you belonging from those areas, you would basically be aware of it. If you go to any of the mandis in the region of Punjab, from the area of Kapurthala all the way till Jalandhar, Amritsar, in that entire belt, even Ludhiana, any of these areas, you go to the mandis, you will find or you will come to realize the power of the middleman, which is very high. So that is why that farm income is not increasing. Okay. Now here, basically, another learning from this. Yes, it is referred to as Adhati and also Arhatiyas in the region of Punjab, particularly in the bordering areas. They will refer to it as Arhatiyas. Okay. So here, in fact, in the region of Punjab and Haryana, before the advent of Green Revolution, millets used to be a very prominent crop. But now no one grows, a very little amount of farmers grow millets there. Why? Because they have seen prosperity happening under Green Revolution. Why change? Right? So that slow decline and death of agriculture is happening. Okay, so here significant regional disparity brought over. Okay, that is why even under Dr. Manmohan Singh, so when he was the ex-prime minister, now Dr. Manmohan Singh, during his tenure itself, and then carried forward by this government as well, there has been a program that the government is basically moving forward to bring forward the learnings from this green revolution, from the drawbacks of the green revolution, and implement it in areas of eastern India to bring about a regional parity, right? So that is the BGREI, that is bringing green revolution to eastern India. Okay, even MS Swaminathan warned India of replacing local varieties completely with high yielding. Yes, my grandfather is a farmer, and he tells me that before green revolution there is production of variety of crops. Exactly, but the revolution is consolidated to wheat and paddy. Paddy production was begin in Punjab, Haryana after green revolution only. Absolutely, yes. It makes no sense to grow paddy in these areas. They have become so dependent on MSP supported crops that they are unable to look towards the future. Yes, that is the major problem. I heard that MS Swaminathan warned Punjab and Haryana is danger of over exploiting underground water. No, in the 60s, that was not so apparent. But over a period of time, MS Swaminathan has made multiple statements warning the region of Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP that grow crops which are suitable to the amount of rainfall, because amount of rainfall has also started becoming variable in those areas. So that is something that he had warned about. Okay, right. So when we talk about the livestock resources in India, that is also very diversified. And just like the human population, the livestock population is also significantly very, very high. So when you have this high livestock population, what that means or what that brings into proposition is the fact that mixed farming or animal husbandry is a process which can viably and economically be carried out, which can always increase the farm income. Okay, at the local level, it can always end up increasing the farm income also. So that is why livestock resources are also very, very valuable. Okay, before I forget, I've been reminded about it to announce that tomorrow we are going to have a session from 9 a.m. Right, from 9 a.m. we'll continue, and we will finish it up tomorrow itself, and we will continue up till that point. Okay, now then we come to agroclimatic zones. What are these agroclimatic zones? So in order to improve the agricultural productivity, one thing was understood long time back was that across various parts of the country, north to south, east to west, you cannot have the same policy of agricultural growth being applied everywhere, and everywhere you will have the benefit of it. No, that could not be possible, because different areas experience different temperature conditions. The region of Western Himalayas, they experience different temperature conditions. The region of Eastern Himalayas experience very different conditions. The region of West Bengal experiences very different conditions as compared to the region of Punjab and Haryana. The eastern coastal plains, they experience different condition as compared to the Peninsula Plateau. So we should devise policies which take into account or which keep in mind the diversity of ecology, the diversity of climate, the diversity of topography of that area, if we really want to increase the agricultural output and thereby the agricultural income. So, for this purpose, to benefit the local ecology of the place also, to increase the agricultural productivity and the farm income also, and the efficiency also, the country was divided into various different agroclimatic zones. The purpose was food sufficiency to be attained, commercialization of agriculture because you could produce more, generate surplus and profit, right? Agroecology. So, 15 agroclimatic zones were carved out. Now here, if you observe the trend, you don't have to learn or memorize these 15 agroclimatic zones. It will serve you well just to be aware of on what criteria is it divided. Observe, agroclimatic zone number 1 is basically the Western Himalayan region. Zone number 2, Eastern Himalayas, very different conditions, isn't it? Zone number 3, Lower Ganga Plain. Zone number 4, Middle Ganga Plain. Zone number 5, Upper Ganga Plain. Zone number 6, that is the region of Punjab, Haryana, similar conditions. So then again, that is the region of Trans Ganga Plain. Then observe this zone number 11, Eastern Coastal Plain. Zone number 12, Western Coastal Plain. Islands, zone number 15. So that is how the classification was done in order to shape separate policies for each of these specific areas, because all of them have different type of soil, different type of local topography, and varying conditions of local geography in that region as well. Okay, now here obviously that has yielded some results and some benefits associated. Now in the recent times, you basically have the increased amount of movement and global demand for organic farming, organic method of cultivation. That is gaining demand, and that is basically becoming popular almost across the country and across the world as well. What is organic farming? Let's simplify it. So when you think about cultivation to be carried out prior to Green Revolution or prior to independence, at that point of time earlier, cultivation was carried out how? You would use your natural products, right? You did not have urea which would be manufactured by someone, right? If you wanted to increase the fertility of the soil, what would you apply? Manure. Where would you get that manure from? Cow dung, kitchen waste, etc. All of that manure, right? If you had to basically provide a disinfectant, again some other form of manure, sometimes edible lime would be supplied. So when you produce your crops without any synthetic inputs, without any synthetic supply, absolutely naturally, that is organic farming. Okay, so as per FAO, organic agriculture, this is a complicated definition, but the simplistic form of it is that you produce food naturally without any artificial intervention. So it is a unique production management system which promotes and enhances agro ecosystem health, including biodiversity, biological cycles, soil biological activity, by ensuring greater amount of earthworms, etc., which come into prominence. And this is accomplished by using on-farm, agronomic, biological, and mechanical methodologies in exclusion of synthetic off-farm inputs. So that is something which basically is organic farming. Purpose of it, to recharge the natural fertility of the soil also organically, naturally, carry out crop rotation, intercropping, in order to ensure that the fertility of the soil is maintained, right? Protecting the long term fertility of the soil by maintaining organic matter levels, encouraging soil biological activity, process of decomposition, etc. Providing crop nutrients indirectly using relatively insoluble nutrient sources, which are made available by the action of soil microorganisms, and through the use of leguminous plants, etc., ensure nitrogen sufficiency. These are your characteristics. Now, one of the processes of organic farming, which was introduced by Subhash Palkar, was basically ZBNF. ZBNF, or zero budget natural farming, is nothing but a type of organic farming, as simple as that. Only a type of organic farming. Organic farming. Now, ZBNF, when it was postulated, when it was being promoted, the concept of it is consumer driven. So is there a consequence of it? Is absolutely, there's absolutely a consequence to that. For organic farming, consumer is the king, as is the case with everyone. But here, the as is estimated, the production and the amount of produce is not as high as is the case with the chemical farming in most of the cases. So that is when, if let's suppose the market demand goes very high, it can bring about unfavorable rates of inflation, what you observed unraveling in Sri Lanka, right? And that can bring about significant chinks of the armor being exposed, and the entire agricultural economy might collapse eventually. So organic farming is an alternative. There more research needs to be carried out in order to improve the efficiency of it, and also at the same time ensure, and through greater research understand, which natural products we can apply which will be an ideal if not better replacement of the chemical fertilizers. Till now, whatever replacements that we have got, they are not at par as the case of the chemical fertilizers. Okay. Now, ZBNF, zero budget, natural farming. Natural farming, obviously, the organic farming or the traditional farming. For natural farming also, you have the government, central government, which has launched a Paramparagat Krishi Yojana, right? In the where you will have a promotion of traditional methods of cultivation. Having said that, zero budget means what? Your input cost would be zero. How? By using on-farm products itself, right? By using products which are available on your farm easily. That is why zero budget. So here, in this method of organic cultivation, you have four different stages. You have different stages. We can change to organic farming steadily. It has to be a gradual change, obviously. Pranay, correct. So it has got four various stages. One is your Bijamrit, where you treat the seed, or before that you carry out Jivamrit. In fact, so first will be Jivamrit. In this, what you do, you treat the soil to encourage the growth of microorganisms and worms, earthworms in the soil, to increase the soil biological activity. Soil is sprayed by a solution to increase the organic activity in the soil. Okay. Then you have Bijamrit, where the seed is treated in order to improve the rate of germination and also to get rid of any fungal or bacterial infection that would have gotten into the seed itself. So it is treated with edible lime, cow urine, etc. That is how the treatment is done. Then you have mulching to ensure retention of soil moisture, to ensure retention and maintenance of soil fertility also. And eventually, after that, you have the condition of Vafasa, which is attained. So, Vafasa is basically a condition which is attained where you have such ideal microclimatic conditions of temperature, amount of the organic activities in the soil, etc., that is ensured. Right? In that case, this Vafasa is attained when you treat the soil, when you provide mulching. This provides ideal microclimatic condition, ecological condition in which the soil will be very, very fertile, and also the growth rate of the plants will be very high. Along with that, intercropping is carried out to maintain soil fertility. So ZBNF, first of all, you spray Jivamrit. In the case of Jivamrit, you basically mix or prepare a solution with water, cow urine and cow dung from the local variety of cow, jaggery, pulses, the local soil, all of that you mix in a solution and you spray it around, so that the organic microorganisms, rather, along with the earthworms, etc., their population will increase. Earthworms are a farmer's friend, because when the earthworm moves through the soil, It not only improves the soil texture, also allows for the passage of air, right? So earthworms, they in a way benefit that. Then Bijamrut, you treat the seeds, okay, the to get rid of any diseases, to increase the germination rate also, right? So again, mixed, you have a mixture of cow urine, cow dung, and edible lime in which that seed is treated. Then you have mulching. Mulching we have already seen earlier, where you cover the topsoil with a layer of dried grass, twigs, straws, etc., in order to protect that soil moisture availability, in order to ensure that soil fertility is retained. And eventually you attain Vafasa, which is the ideal microclimatic condition which is attained, and ideal organism, microorganism growth and development which is obtained in the soil in order to ensure greater productivity in the long run. So along with that, intercropping you carry out, and this is an organic process of farming. Similarly, you have the methodology of permaculture also, where you have permaculture means permanent cultivation. Some or the other crop you grow naturally, depending upon the variety of the land, depending upon the climatic conditions of the land. You grow some or the other crop naturally in that area. So this is how the process works. Vafasa is the ideal. Mulching we had explained in the previous session. Okay, maybe you guys missed it. Okay. Vafasa is ideal microclimatic condition of soil to ensure proper growth of roots and organic processes. A condition attained in the soil after Jivamrut and mulching. So Vafasa is that ideal state of soil where the plants will also grow, where the microorganisms, they will also start acting. So when will you attain that? When you carry out Jivamrut and the process of mulching. Bijamrut is when you treat the soil, treat the seed in order to improve its rate of germination, and also where you treat the seed in order to get rid of fungal or bacterial infections. Okay. So Karan and Gaurav, is that understood? Muskan, mulching basically refers to when you cover the top layer of the soil with any portion such as dried grass, twigs, branches, dried leaves, etc., just to ensure that the top layer is not exposed anymore. And when the top layer is not exposed anymore, then due to excess heating or cooling, the soil will not get impacted readily, right? Otherwise, what happens? The soil dries out significantly. You have the moisture conservation, which is ensured, temperature control, prevention of surface compaction. When it is get heated quite sufficiently for a long time, soil develops cracks, it hardens, it becomes infertile eventually. It develops a kind of a sandy texture blown away by the wind, right? So that is why it is covered with a biodegradable plastic or any of the materials to provide that moisture retention to the soil. That is basically mulching, reduction of runoff and erosion also. Okay. Most of the farmers are not using mulching, but nowadays that awareness is also increasing, Pranay. If you observe at the grassroots, so at least I have observed that when I would visit the farmlands in various different areas, almost um, 7 years back or 5 years back, that level of awareness was not there. But because of technology, because of the availability of smartphones, now you have people in the faraway hinterlands also aware of the latest technology. So they also, because maybe they would have watched a video on YouTube or some other thing. So that is why you will find that increased adaptation is happening at the grassroots level. And this is one of the great silver linings that India has. Its lack of hesitancy when it comes to adoption of technology. Here you will find even the older generation adopting technology. So that is one of the significant silver linings that we have, which can bring about a paradigm shift in our agriculture or cultivation methods. And most of the farmers, yeah, strawberry cultivation and bell pepper use the mulching, yes. Majority of the strawberry is one of those, yes. But majority of them, they use the process of mulching. Okay. Now, okay, let's target the portion of minerals and industries first, and then we will come to these questions. So here we come to the portion of minerals and industries. Now, this is a portion of economic geography where the questions, whenever they are asked, they are oftentimes asked from current affairs only, any particular region in discussion or news. So, from that area, questions are generally framed from. Okay. Having said that, still we have to cover these areas because sometimes the questions are asked even from the basics. So, in your prelims, be on the lookout for your portion of current affairs. Okay, significantly, and also newer minerals, then their regional spread. This is something you have to look forward to. Then basically also you have the areas associated with basics of minerals and their regional distribution. Regional distribution. And then in the mains exam, from this area, you get questions associated with location of industries, industrial corridors. These are the areas from where you will find the presence or the questions being asked from. Okay. Frequently, the questions are being asked from. Shweta, sir, you can take a lecture of geography related current affairs. Shweta, anyways, before your next prelims, we will do something like that. We will plan a separate series for just like this year also we had conducted a separate prelims crash course of sort where we had a separate discussion for geography, also environment ecology as well. So that is something that we are seeking to continue even for next year, so that you are ready by that. And those of you taking the optional geography optional, so I would be from now onwards addressing the geography optional webinars also, so you will get a better idea about what all developments you have to cater to. Okay, but don't worry, this will be taken care of. Now here, first of all, when we talk about the minerals and industries, you have to understand that the minerals, their classification of it is divided into metallic and non-metallic minerals, and you have the energy minerals as well. What do we understand by these? Metallic minerals. The classification that you would have read maybe in your class 7th or 8th standard. Metallic minerals, they have a property of metals. They are sonorous. When you hit them, they give that sound, right? That metal sound. Then these are also those particular minerals which generally are malleable and ductile. Malleable and ductile means Malleability means that when you hit it out, when you stretch it out, it can get stretched under conditions, obviously under warm conditions, without breaking from between. Ductility means ability to stretch into long wires without breaking in between. So they can be malleable, they can be ductile, they are good conductors of heat and electricity. That is about the metallic minerals. Then, when we talk about non metallic minerals, generally they don't have that shiny luster that you associate with the metallic minerals in general. They don't have that shine associated with them, right? So, that is where, just a moment. So, non-metallic minerals, they don't have that shine associated. They break easily. They're brittle in nature. They are not at all good conductors of heat or electricity. They are very good insulators for that matter, right? So those are your non-metallic minerals. And then you have energy minerals also, which are used to provide energy. When you burn them, they provide energy. So for example, coal, crude oil, petroleum, natural gas, these are basically your different types of minerals. Okay. Now, where are these minerals to be found? So, minerals are to be found across igneous metamorphic rocks. They are also to be found in the regions when we talk about sedimentary rocks, also, right? They are also to be found at the bottom of the oceans, also at the seabed, also. So, minerals are distributed in various different areas. When we talk about the regions of rocks, now in igneous and metamorphic rocks, oftentimes minerals, they will appear in the form of these large cracks that develop. So in the large cracks, faults, or joints in these rocks, you will have concentration of minerals present. Let's suppose there's a large crack, and here you have concentration of a mineral such as gold, for example. Now, when I say a crack like this or a joint like this can extend for many kilometers altogether, right? And around it, you can have multiple mines being built, all of them using the tools and methodologies to extract the minerals from this. So it can be a long drawn out process. Then these minerals can also be present in certain chunks somewhere. For example, let's suppose we talk about gold. So it is also present in certain chunks in certain areas. So when they are present across these cracks, crevices, joints, etc., this is what are referred to as veins. Okay. And when they are present in large chunks, these are what are referred to as lodes, available in large chunk. Large chunks. Across cracks, joints. Okay. Then this is how you find minerals in very different igneous rock, metamorphic rock formations. You will find such kind of mineral deposit. Then in sedimentary rocks, a number of minerals, they occur in between the various different layers. For example, iron ore is one of those, limestone is one of those, right? Example, iron ore, limestone, coal, even for that matter, even in many of the cases, shale gas, for example. These are to be found embedded within the sedimentary rock layers as they would have been deposited. That is how they are eventually found as well. Then another form of formation, another mode of formation involves the decomposition of the surface, chemical weathering of the rocks, whereby the outer portions of the rock can get dissolved in water, rainwater, etc. And the lower portions or the inner portions which are not soluble in those materials, they get left behind. For example, bauxite is one of those minerals. Bauxite is the ore from which aluminium is extracted. So there also, by chemical weathering and the chemical decomposition of the rocks also, you can extract certain minerals. Then they can also exist. The minerals are also to be found as placer deposits. I hope you remember placer deposits. We had studied placer deposits in the portion of continental drift. If you remember, we had discussed that how materials such as gold, they get deposited at a very far away distance from where they originate from. So these placer deposits in Chota Nagpur plateau, for example, you have river Subarnarekha. River Subarnarekha is an example of that placer deposits getting created by that river, right? So in yes, Kunal, perfect. Ghana coast and South America. So even placer deposits are the regions where minerals are found. Example, Chota Nagpur plateau. In that river Subarnarekha. In fact, the name itself, River Subarnarekha, the name in itself is derived from, which means the golden line. So, for a long period of time, historically and traditionally, this is one of those rivers which had those small gold particles which would come over it. So that is where a lot of people would be engaged in sieving out those particular deposits and trying to make some money out of it. Now that is not happening anymore, obviously. Then you will also find minerals to basically form concretions and get deposited at the ocean bed, at the bed of the sea. And there, this is what is also here. For example, this is the ocean. This is the ocean bed. So you will have multiple different minerals coming together, forming large concretions at the base of the oceans. And these will have multiple different minerals from iron, magnesium, cobalt, nickel, all these various different included into these particular nuggets. These are also what are referred to as polymetallic nodules. Polymetallic nodules, because they consist of various different metallic components included within it. Okay, so for that, it is for this reason that various different countries are vying or they are exploring the underwater region. They are developing or building vessels which can reach the ocean bottom very easily, so that they are able to explore it and further exploit it also when the time comes or the need arises. Now then we come to the distribution of minerals in India. And here again, I would want you to study this after you have had a significant control over physiographic division. Now, remember when we discussed about the origin of India and, in fact, the formation of the landmass of the country, we had talked about the fact that how you had initially the older portions getting created, that is the Chota Nagpur plateau, that is the region of the Bastar plateau, even the region of Karnataka plateau, the region of Aravali's Bundelkhand. These were the older regions which were created. So obviously these are the regions which are significantly rich in the mineral deposits, because in these areas the top layers have been weathered and have been removed off, exposing the lower layers which are rich in mineral deposits. So that is why it is in these states and in these areas itself where majority of the mines and mineral deposits will be found. In this area also. In this area also. So that is where you'll find the majority of minerals to be found, majority of minerals to be present. Okay, so Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, these are the regions where you will find a lot of these mineral deposits. Okay, now let us take a look at each of these mineral deposits one by one. And here, the idea is to get a basic concept about the regions where they are to be found and the basic properties of these minerals. Okay, but mostly you have to keep an eye out for the portion of current affairs in all these areas. starting with iron ore. When we talk about iron ore, now that is the raw material from which you get iron and steel. Now, iron and steel is considered to be the backbone for the development and growth of any particular country. In the modern day and age, the backbone of industrialization, railways, highways, airports, flyways, anything, it requires iron and steel. So that is why presence of iron and steel is very, very important to bring forward that growth story. Now, iron ore is of various different types, depending upon the purity of it, how much amount of iron is present in that ore. Depending upon that, iron ore is of types classified into magnetite, hematite, limonite, and siderite. Out of these, magnetite is the purest, where the content of iron in that is around 70%, which is as pure as it can get in an ore, right? Almost 70% iron. So thereby, it has got very high magnetic properties, very good conduction properties. So that is a property that you associate with magnetite. Okay. Then here you also have, so but then magnetite, it is not used increasingly for all the industrial applications, only for very specific applications in the sense that when you talk about the applicability of it in let's suppose in the regions of uh, power plant, in the region of electrical industry, only in those areas magnetite is used. But for general industrial purposes, hematite is utilized. In India, you find both. Magnetite is to be found in the regions of Karnataka, Rajasthan, right? So Karnataka is one of the leading producers, followed by Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Tamil Nadu. In these areas, magnetite is to be found and has been found. In fact, UPSC had asked this question once about where is it, or a statement question that iron ore is to be found in Rajasthan. Majority of the people, when they think about Rajasthan, they think about that Rajasthan means only desert, nothing else. So majority of them, they marked it incorrect. But Rajasthan has got not only the presence of iron ore, one of the purest varieties of iron ore, that is magnetite. Then comes the industrial grade, that is hematite, where the amount of iron is around 50 to 60%, 65% also in certain cases. Now, hematite ore occurs in India across various different regions. For example, this is one of the areas, Chota Nagpur region, Singhbhum Mayurbhanj belt, then the Durg, Chhattisgarh, and Maharashtra belt, then also Odisha, and then the Goa Ratnagiri belt. These are the four areas where you will find hematite ores in significant proportion. So when we talk about hematite, basically, it is the most important industrial ore in terms of the quantity used, right? It has lesser content of iron as compared to magnetite. It is increasingly used for manufacturing of steel, etc. So it is to be found in Odisha, Jharkhand belt. That is the Singhbhum region in Jharkhand, the Mayurbhanj area of Odisha. So the Singhbhum Mayurbhanj region. Singhbhum Mayurbhanj area. So this provides the availability of iron into the regions such as the Durgapur steel plant, the Raurkela steel plant. Durgapur, I hope you are aware, is a major steel plant in West Bengal. Raurkela steel plant in Odisha, Bokaro steel plant in the region of Jharkhand. So that iron in the for these steel plants supplied from this nearby location. Then Durg, Bastar, Chandrapur belt, also Bhilai steel plant, for example, gets iron from this particular area. It is a contiguous region from eastern Maharashtra all the way into portions of Chhattisgarh and also in some adjoining areas of Odisha, but mostly restricted to Chhattisgarh. So Durg, Bastar, Chandrapur belt. Then in Karnataka, you have the Ballari, Chitradurg, Chikmagalur, Tumkuru belt, right? So that entire stretch of the Karnataka plateau, very sufficiently rich in iron ore. Kudremukh reserves in Karnataka is one of the large reserves of iron ore present in our country, and that is sufficiently rich in iron content also. Then you have the Ratnagiri Goa belt. Now, obviously, over the past few years, mining in this Ratnagiri Goa belt that has not been carried out because of conservation of Western Ghats, the uh, recommendations made by the Gadgil Committee and the Kasturi Rangan Committee. As a result of that, mining in Western Ghats has not been carried forward. But however, these are the major iron ore producing areas across the various parts of the country. Jharia, to some extent, yes. Jharia but is well known for coal and the fire which is raging underneath it. I live in Bhilai steel plant, yes. So why do they use it more than magnetite? Because magnetite availability is also not significantly high, and also for industrial purposes, let's suppose for manufacturing of steel, you don't need that pure grade of iron, right? You can do with the kind of hematite ore also, which is cheaper also. Hematite obviously is cheaper also. So for wider application, use hematite. Similarly for coal also, the best variety is anthracite, but very rarely is anthracite used. In most of the cases, bituminous is put to use. Okay. Now, manganese. So when we talk about manganese, it has got multifarious utilities. Manganese basically is used for the manufacturing of steel, ferromagnetic alloy also. For example, 10 kg of manganese is used to manufacture 1 ton of steel. Okay, so you have significant amount of manganese which is used. It can be used in manufacturing of bleaching powder, insecticides and paints also. That can also be done. Right. So here, state-wise, Odisha, it tops the total resources. 25% of manganese to be found in the region of Odisha. Karnataka 22%, Madhya Pradesh followed after that. So that is basically the distribution of manganese. In most of the cases, you will observe the same trend. Odisha, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, and in certain cases, even Madhya Pradesh. These are your leading producers. Okay. When we talk about aluminium, for example, aluminium is produced from bauxite. Now, initially, after the extraction process, a clay-like substance that is alumina, that is Al2O3, that is derived. Now, this Al2O3, from that later on, aluminium is eventually obtained. And aluminium is of significant utility, be it transportation sector, be it electrical sector, from manufacturing of airplanes to the manufacturing of bodies of the automobiles. In all these places, aluminium is used. It is highly malleable and ductile. That is, it can be stretched into sheets without breaking. That is why you have the manufacturing of the aluminium foils also, you would have come across. Okay. Now, bauxite deposits are formed by the decomposition of a wide variety of rocks rich in aluminium silicates. Now, India's bauxite deposits are found in Amarkantak Plateau region, the Mekal Hills, and the plateau region of Bilaspur, Katni. If from that area aluminium is extracted, but also from the region around, when you talk about the other portions of the country, bauxite reserves are also to be found in the areas of Renukut, for example, in Uttar Pradesh, Muri in the region of Jharkhand, then some portions of Odisha, some portions of Tamil Nadu, and again the Ratnagiri Goa belt also you'll find aluminium deposits. Now, then we have copper. Now, copper traditionally in our country has been used for more than 2000 years and more. Because when you read about Bronze Age in history, I'm sure you would have read about Bronze Age. Now, that Bronze Age is made basically the manufacturing of bronze. Copper is an important constituent. So think about it, that thousands of years ago, when people were using bronze, they were basically extracting copper from some or the other areas of our country. Metallurgical analysis has indicated that the copper used at that point of time would have either come from the Khetri mines in Rajasthan or would have come from the Hazaribagh mines in Jharkhand. But nonetheless, copper has been in use. India doesn't have significant or sufficient availability of copper out there. We have deficiency of it. And the requirement is very high in electrical industry in particular. As we finally seek to provide electrification for everyone, right? I hope in the next few years we will be able to achieve that, where every individual eventually will get the true access for electricity 24/7, reliable electricity. Usage of copper is going to be very, very high. And that high usage of copper basically can be justified by, or can be fulfilled only by, imports. Right? In India, when we talk about copper and the copper deposits, so Balaghat mines in Madhya Pradesh, Khetri mines in Rajasthan, the Singhbhum district of Jharkhand, they are the leading producers. Overall, Rajasthan is the state having the largest reserves of copper, where you will observe that the ore is of 668 million tons. Out of that, 4 million tons is the copper present in that ore. So that tells you or gives you an idea about the amount of impurities that are generally present in the ores also. When we observe the map in the old landmass area, we can see bauxite. Yes, true, Parshuram. All the old landmass areas are the ones where you find the various different minerals, all of them. Limestone. Limestone traditionally is formed where? We have discussed this under the chemical sedimentary rocks. So limestone traditionally is to be formed in those areas where these areas have been under shallow water bodies, where deposits of calcium and carbonate over a period of time by the shells and the skeletons of the various species, that has created rich deposit of limestone. Right? These are sedimentary in nature, very rich in calcium and magnesium uh, carbonates and silicates. And that is why limestone is increasingly used for cement industry, because calcium has got that binding property. So limestone is a very important key component for the cement industry. And then when we talk about even iron and steel industry, there also limestone is used, significantly used for manufacturing or for making the walls of the furnaces, right? The blast furnaces which are used for making that brick lining of that, for that also limestone is utilized. Okay, so that is the purpose of, or the utility of, limestone. Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, even Meghalaya, these are the regions rich in limestone deposits. So it is found in association with rocks composed of calcium carbonates or calcium and magnesium carbonates, found in sedimentary rocks of most of the geological formations. It is the basic raw material for the cement industry and is essential for smelting iron ore in the blast furnace. So, Karnataka is the leading state, followed by Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Meghalaya, Chhattisgarh, and so on. Okay, now, right, gypsum content is more in limestone, not very high, no. So that is why gypsum is separately procured for the cement industry. And the western part of Tamil Nadu have the presence of limestone, but it's not near ocean. Is Madhya Pradesh near an ocean, my dear friend Justin? Think about it. Is Madhya Pradesh near an ocean? Is Uttarakhand near an ocean? Obviously not. So obviously the formation of limestone in these areas would have happened long before the present shape of the Indian subcontinent would have come into existence. when we had the still the existence of the small regions or the small plateau areas which would have undergone submergence, subsidence, upliftment, etc. Okay, recall the portion of cratons that we had studied. Then we have mica. Mica is again a non-metal, is a very good insulator. Mica is one of those where you find the presence of these sheets, many of these sheets arranged together. That is what you find when you talk about mica here. Okay. So here you'll find the presence of these multiple sheets. And in these areas, you'll find that it is such a good insulator, it doesn't allow heat to pass, it doesn't allow electrical current to pass. So that is why in very specific purposes of electrical industry, requiring very high dielectric strength is what? So generally when you pass very high electricity over an insulator, the insulator will fail after a point of time because the material is unable to withstand that high amount of voltage and current passing through it. But certain materials such as mica, they are able to not only hold the charge but also withstand the temperature and the other changes which happen due to high current passing through it. That is why significantly used as insulators and even in circuit breakers across the electrical sector. So due to its excellent dielectric strength, low power loss factor, insulating properties and resistance to high voltage, mica is one of the most indispensable minerals used in electrical industry. Now, this is a particular mineral which appears in the ore of pegmatite. Pegmatite ore is from where mica is extracted from. So, traditionally to be found in regions of Rajasthan, traditionally to be found in the regions of Jharkhand, Bihar, even Andhra Pradesh. So, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Bihar, and Rajasthan, where Rajasthan in itself accounts for 51% of the resources. And this is something which is available very easily. If sometimes you have a road travel or a road trip in that area around Ajmer, you will observe these mica deposits shining from the various different rocky surfaces and rocky protrusions. Mica keeps on shining. So it is available very, same is the case with Jharkhand also. If let's suppose you end up moving in the region between, let's suppose Dhanbad to Hazaribagh, there also you'll find a lot of these mica deposits immediately on the side of the roads also. So these are abundantly present and rich in mica deposits. Then we come to the energy mineral of coal. We have seen the mineral of petroleum already and the regions where they are found. How is it that petroleum is found? Let me see if we are aware of it. How is it that petroleum is formed in general? Very good. Marine deposits. No, coal is plant based, petroleum is animal based. Marine animals, that is when they get deposited and there is significant amount of deposit of them, that is how petroleum is. Yes, perfect. Ankit, Abhishek, correct. So here, when we talk about coal, coal is basically a plant-based sedimentary rock formation in a way where you have the plants, they get fossilized and they get deposited in layer upon layer. And when they get deposited in layer upon layer, upon getting compressed, that is when they get converted into coal. Over a long period of time spanning for hundreds of millions of years, in the process of carbonification, the carbon content enriches. Because when you talk about the plants, they are made up of wood. Wood is chiefly constituted of carbon. All the species on planet Earth, we are carbon-based species. All of us, we have a lot of carbon in us, right? So even the plants have that carbon. So when that wood gets deposited and gets compressed over the long span of time of hundreds of millions of years in higher temperature and pressure conditions, in that situation, that wood undergoes the process of carbonification. And eventually all the impurities, they get taken away or they get moved away, and only the carbon of it is left behind. So that is why, even based upon the carbon content, that the coal is divided into four types. You have anthracite, bituminous, lignite, and peat. So carbon content reduces as you move from anthracite to peat. So anthracite is the one where you will observe maximum amount of carbon content, right? So for example, in regions such as some parts of US, Indonesia, Australia, South Africa, the process of carbonification in many of these areas was initiated around 350 million years back. So that is why complete carbonification has happened in those areas. So there you will find anthracite. In India, majority of the carbonification that has happened around 200 million years back in the Gondwana rock formations. So that is why in India you will find bituminous, Gondwana variety bituminous coal, which doesn't have very high carbon content, which has a lot of sulfur, and a lot of ash is also generated in the process. That is why India, despite having significantly large amount of coal deposit, needs to import coal from all these nations. Okay, carbonification is a process of carbon enrichment. Okay, where the wood of the trees, they get converted into, basically only the carbon is left behind, all the other impurities are taken away out of it. So that is why in India, majority you'll find is bituminous. For anthracite, such a long time duration, such a high amount of pressure is required, that wherever you will find anthracite in India, you will find anthracite only in some areas around Jammu Kashmir, that too around the Pir Panjal. And that is because the amount of compression between the rocks has been so very high that the coal has been converted into the anthracite. But in all the other areas, you will find bituminous. And this is a question which UPSC has asked in the mains exam, by the way, driven largely by the portion of economics, something that you study in economics about the import, export, and the trade policy. But it is a question which has been asked, that despite having such high amount of coal deposits, why does India need to import coal? Purely, sulfur content is very high, carbon content is not very high, ash content is very high. So for industrial purposes, India imports industrial or coking coal, or what is referred to as coke, from the countries such as Indonesia, Australia, South Africa, and so on. Now, when you come to the level of lignite and peat, for example, in the case of peat, the process of carbonification is yet not complete. So that is why peat, you will still observe that woody texture. If you have observed peat, if you have taken a look at peat, it will give you that brownish appearance. It will still have those layers like that of a wood, where you can break it off like this. Anthracite will give you the complete blackish appearance, right, where you won't be able to figure out the layers. But in peat, you will be able to figure out the layers. So when you burn anthracite, it will give you the very bright blue flame, lot of energy, because completely made up of carbon, almost 90 to 95% of carbon is present in anthracite. Whereas when you burn peat, only impurities, water vapor, etc., it is present, lot of smoke, least amount of fire or heat produced. So that is your variety of coal or classification of coal. So anthracite is the best quality of coal, carries around almost up till 95% of the carbon content, highest calorific value, also ignites slowly with a blue flame. Highest calorific value means provides significant amount of energy. It is found in small quantities in Jammu Kashmir, but in India, majorly it is not to be found. Anthracite, even for that matter, is not utilized for many industrial purposes out there. The utility of it is also restricted significantly. Then bituminous. So when we say bituminous, it basically carries 60 to 80% of carbon content. This is the one which is majorly to be used for industrial purposes. Okay, so in India, you find bituminous coal in Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, portions of Maharashtra, Telangana, in all these areas, even in Bundelkhand region, in all these areas of the Gondwana formations, Gondwana rocks, you'll find the presence of bituminous, right? Lignite is often brown in color, 40 to 45% of carbon content. It is an intermediate stage which happens during the alteration of woody matter into coal, high moisture content. So it still gives a lot of smoke when it is burnt, less amount of energy. So in the region around Tamil Nadu, you have the region around Neyveli, right? Neyveli lignite is very famous. Rajasthan, Lakhimpur, Assam, these are the areas of lignite. And then you have peat. Peat is basically less than 40% carbon content. Here, it is the first stage of transformation from wood to coal. So that is why not at all used for industrial purposes. Wherever used for domestic purposes or even the small scale cottage industries, they will use it. But for major industrial purposes, peat is never used. Okay. Now, as I told you, depending upon when that process of carbonification has happened, even based on that, you have classification of Indian coal into Gondwana grade coal, where the process of carbonification was initiated almost 200 to 20 million years back. So that amount of coal is still better, bituminous variety. And then you have the tertiary grade coal, where the process of carbonification was initiated only around 50 million years back, 40 to 50 million years back. So if you talk about it, Gondwana coal deposits are around 200 million years old, right? So the major coal deposits in India, Godavari River Valley, the Mahanadi River Valley, then in the region around the Damodar Valley also. So West Bengal, Jharkhand in the region of Jharia, Dhanbad, Raniganj, Bokaro coal fields, Godavari, Mahanadi, Son, Wardha Valley, all those where traditionally and historically there have been fossilization of the plants, deposits created in these areas, you will have a lot of Gondwana variety coal. But tertiary grade coal, where the carbonification was initiated only around 55 million years back. So that is why it is to be found in the region of northeastern states of Meghalaya, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and Nagaland. That is where you'll find the tertiary grade coal. Now, before ending the session here for today, first of all, by the way, tomorrow we are going to have a session from 9 a.m. and tomorrow we are going to try to finish the syllabus. Tomorrow itself, we'll be discussing maps and population and settlement also tomorrow. But here, I want you to understand for a brief 5 minutes about the concept of rat hole mining. What is the concept of rat hole mining? So, when we say rat hole mining, what is the meaning of it? So, in many of the coal producing areas, those of you belonging from such regions, you would have observed that during the nights, you will observe that there are some bonfires getting lit up out there in the remotest of the vegetation and the forested area. So, for example, let's suppose here you have the presence of a coal seam. Let me use a color white to represent the coal seam. Let's suppose this is your coal seam, which has been extracted, which has been exploited. Maybe the government companies, they feel that it is no longer economically viable. It might have few 10 tons, 20 tons or 50 tons of coal left in it, or 100 tons of coal left in it, and we cannot deploy so much machinery anymore. So maybe it is an abandoned mine, or maybe it is still a functioning mine altogether. So here what is done, small hole is dug, a small hole is dug in that area. A hole only large enough to fit an adult individual, an adult male member or man generally, in a lying position so that they can crawl through that. That is why it is referred to as rat hole. Now, what happens? many of the times. Obviously, it is dug around in a very rudimentary manner, in a very traditional manner. So oftentimes what happens is that the top collapses, trapping the people in between, or there's significant amount of rainfall, filling up this rat hole, drowning the people involved. So rat hole mining claims a lot of lives every year. Now, it came into prominence across the world recently, that is a few years back, when you had an event or such an incident in Meghalaya where few people drowned in one of this rat hole mine. But in regions of Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, rat hole mining is a practice which has been carried on for decades now, right? Coal India every year, as per the estimates way back in 2008-10, it had given an estimate that every year we lose revenue worth around 8,000 crores to 10,000 crores because of rat hole mining, because of coal which is extracted illegally and then sold illegally. Now, in the entire process where the people coming to the rat holes, they succumb to injuries, they die, we tend to forget it is still an illegal work. It is an illegal profession. But presently, you have a situation where tens of thousands of families in these coal producing areas, they are supported by the rat hole miners. The entire ecosystem is supported by that. So that is why getting rid of this problem is becoming increasingly difficult. In fact, it was during one of these rat hole mining events where accidentally in the region of Jharia, close to Dhanbad, Jharia we have studied for the Gondwana coal, good variety coal. Jharia had significant amount of coal seams and coal deposits. It was one of these events of rat hole mining where accidentally the illegal miners, they put fire to that coal bed, and more than 2 decades have passed since that event. Jharia is still burning. Those of you from that location or that region would associate with it. That what that region was prior to that burning event. If you would have happened to go to Jharia, maybe obviously many of you would not have been born at that point of time. But if you would have ventured in the late 90s or mid 90s, it would be a sprawling and a thriving town, just like the neighboring vicinity areas. But if you happen to visit Jharia now, it gives you a desertified look. The vegetation in the surrounding areas, they have died out because of the heat produced from the underground. And time again, there is mass level of subsidence of land, right? Why? Because that underground fire rages on, weakening the land above it, and you have mass level of land subsidence which is being observed. Jharia now bears a deserted look. Rat hole miners, they have shifted from Jharia to the nearby coal beds. That is why the problem of rat hole mining needs to be taken care of, and needs to be taken care of urgently. Okay. Now, here, that is where I will end the session here today. I know that we have been carrying on the session from 10 a.m. So we will carry on the rest of the discussion about location of industries tomorrow, about the pattern of population development and settlement also briefly, so along with mapping. That is something that we are going to cover tomorrow. Okay. Now, meanwhile, let us tackle the questions. And Gaurav, I'm unable to draw world map. I am securing only 4 to 5 marks out of the 15 in mains question practice. So, I don't think 4 to 5 out of 15 would be awarded because of lack of world map out there. So improve on the other content first. It See, map drawing of map will come only with practice. Okay, and take one continent at a time. Practice it at least 50 times. Chances are that the 51st time you will be much more secure in that. So do that, and then slowly you will be able to gain proficiency. But there again, I would say that look at improving the content also. Where is it that you can improve? Okay. Ravi, the entire township itself is abandoned and if occupied by locals in inhabitable condition. Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. When we talk about the region of Jharia, the impact that the region has experienced is simply one of those cases which is largely ignored, and it will go down in the history books as one of the most mismanaged conditions in the mining industry across the world. It is still burning. There is, and Karan, your question that is there no method to stop fire in Jharia? See, we are talking about coal bed which is on fire, which is many kilometers thick, which is many kilometers wide as well. Right. So while a wider area has been cut off, but unless and until that entire coal will burn off, I don't think there is a solution in sight. Shweta, no idea about mains answer writing. Okay, so maybe you would have missed the earlier sessions where we discussed the mains questions. Don't worry, tomorrow also I will take up a couple of mains questions for discussion and we will discuss it tomorrow also. Okay, tomorrow we start at 9. We will try to finish it by around 12 or 12:30 or 1. We'll finish it up by tomorrow. Okay, so right, so that addresses the questions. So that will be all from my side here, guys. Thank you very, very much for being patient enough, for being attentive enough. I hope that this has added some value to your existing knowledge information. Till we meet again tomorrow, do take care of yourself. Goodbye. Thank you and have a good night.